I am a citizen of the Potawatomi Nation of Shawnee, Oklahoma. I've carried throughout my life an ID card. It has a picture of my 11-year-old self on it, and that's important because there have only been specific times throughout history that people have been told to carry these cards as proof that they belong to their people. And one of those times was apartheid South Africa. And another one of those times is for indigenous people in North America, Native Americans. So we carry these cards as proof that we belong to our people, but also a way to monitor us. And so I have this card, and I've carried it for a long time, but when I was young, I didn't understand what that meant. I didn't understand what it meant that I had this card. I didn't always understand what it means to be Native. About 3 years ago, while hiking at a place called Sweetwater Creek, God told me something that I had never really heard before. God told me that I was Potawatomi. Growing up, I knew that, right? It was head knowledge. But in that moment, while hiking by a giant river, God sent what was head knowledge into my heart, and it became a different kind of knowledge altogether. It became a knowledge of self-identity. God called to memory my ancestors, women who came before me who walked the trail of death, nursing their babies along the way from the Great Lakes region of the United States into Kansas in order to survive. Many died along the way. Literally, as my feet took step after step on a path of fallen brown leaves with crinkled wet skin, I was being told to walk as they walked, to remember as they remembered. For me, it was a revival. I was being called to life, fresh breath in my lungs. I was being called to remember, to get to work with all that I am as a Jesus follower and as an Indigenous woman. Revival. This is why we are here today. We are being called to new life, and in a lot of ways, we have no idea what that looks like. We are simply answering a call, the call to fight white supremacy and colonial Christianity, the call to replace hate with love. Part of that call is to remember that we are cleansed by the water. In Potawatomi culture and in many other Native cultures, women are water protectors. Do you remember Standing Rock in 2016? That movement was started by women. Women who knew that their calling was to meet at the water, to pray over her, to bless her, to protect her. It was a movement of revival. When I was 7, I had a dream about water. Jesus and I were in a boat. We were floating. It appeared to be inside of a room that looked like a dark movie theater. And the devil approached and he tried to take me away, but he failed. And I stayed in the boat and I floated around this room with Jesus. And not long after that, I was baptized on Easter Sunday at Rodeo Road Baptist Church in New Mexico. And I remember that day going down under the water and coming back up and looking out at all those people in my church. There's something about the water. I was born in Oklahoma on Indian territory. I'm a citizen of the Potawatomi Band, an Anishinaabe tribe originally from the Great Lakes. The Trail of Death was similar to the Trail of Tears, but this was my tribe's journey. My people were sent into Oklahoma, Kansas, a few other states. My tribe is the Oklahoma Band. We were led away from our home at gunpoint. Men, women, and children forced to leave what was known for what was completely unknown, all in the name of God. We are called the people of the place of fire because we literally were the ones who used to tend to the fires to keep them burning. But we also ask ourselves, how is your shkode, your fire, burning? Because we know that it's a reminder to stay on the path, to continue the hard work of caring for our people who have been oppressed for so long, the hard work of caring for others. It is a constant asking, do we need revival? In our tribe, women are water protectors. We carry our babies in a womb of water. We sing over them. Jesus was baptized in a body of water. And soon after that, he entered into this wilderness experience, and then he began his ministry. But first, he was baptized. First, maybe he was a little afraid because we all know that when revival is coming, we are about to get shaken up. You see, Jesus knew that the water meant something. He knew that to start something, you must first cleanse yourself from what came before. And in that moment when the dove appeared and the Spirit of God called out, it was a clear sign for all to hear and to see that the water worked a miracle, that the water was leading Jesus into something, and the people who had come into contact with him were about to enter into their own kind of revival, every one of them. It's what happened when the Spirit breathed on the people of the early church, a revival, a chance to look back, to see the true history of everyone there, and to move forward with God into a new future in which everyone is included in the sacred work of shalom. Revival. When Standing Rock happened, I came alive to myself. Even though I wasn't there in person, I watched endless live feeds from my living room couch, my two boys at my side. It was the first time in my life that I literally felt that weight in my chest, the reality that my ancestors really did walk that trail of death, that we really are a people who live generational trauma and are trying to sacredly walk and pray our way out of it. We are people of wilderness. We are asking to be seen, honored. The American church's history with indigenous peoples is grim at best. When Columbus arrived and the Puritans after him, they arrived on water. Traders, colonizers, people looking for gold in the Americas washed on our shores and saw that our people were in the way of their goals of greed and Christian empire. The water brought them, but the water did not bless what they would do in the years to come, the years of genocide and assimilation, the years of kill the Indian, save the man. Indian boarding schools took children from their homes, cut off their hair, burned their clothes, gave them Christian names. The goal was to wash away the stains of their heathen, savage, native identity. The goal was to revive them, but really it was killing them. The church is still using water to revive. But often we baptize because we are afraid. We've created a Christianity that says, go into the water and be cleansed or else. Go into the water and come up a white savior to show the world who's boss. So we must revive what it means to be baptized, what it means to be people of the water. The water turned to wine, the water in the well, the angel at the water, the Spirit hovering over the water, Jesus in the water, so much water. So many people asking for revival. And we know this, that the baptism pool does not discriminate. It is the gift that is said to be for everyone and anyone, just as the love of Christ bids us come. True revival is a gift. But as the church, we've got to accept it on the terms it is given, on the terms of Jesus, who turns things upside down, who says that the last shall be first and the first shall be last. It means that we have to rewire the way we treat one another. That the church must rewire the way it treats indigenous people and people of color. I am more than a blood quantum. I am more than a label of a stereotype of a woman with braids dressed in buckskin. I am more than what people ask of me, more than what is expected. When someone says, oh, I've never met a Native American Christian before, I am there, born from the baptism in the wilderness, born from my own revival, to answer the call before me, to walk in my ancestors' footsteps, to show the world what it means to be Potawatomi. This is part of my revival, but it includes you. Revive, to bring back to consciousness. What have we been doing this past year in America? We've been bringing back to consciousness racism, white supremacy, ableism, sexism, bigotry, misogyny, toxic masculinity. We are doing it so that we can be more fully alive, so the fractions can be made whole, so that the church can experience revival. But so often, indigenous peoples are left out of that conversation. You still see us as static figures in a history book, flat characters in a Cowboys and Indians film. But we are dynamic. We are flowing and growing, living and breathing among you every day. So it is time for a revival for all of us, for our collective consciousness to acknowledge what has been done to indigenous peoples at the hands of the church, to call us together for the sake of the gospel, to call us together to remember that everyone belongs. It is time to say that if we call ourselves to baptism, to journeying with a brown Jesus, we call ourselves to everyday revival. Because as long as the church still only wants what is white in me, but not what is native in me, there is still work to be done. And as long as the church still only wants a white, passive Jesus, and not the one who was crucified for fighting an empire, there is still work to be done. There is revival to be had. We are to be baptized into something new. The Spirit baptizes us into something new in America in 2018. The water does not choose who is clean or unclean. We have tried to do that, but the water is universal. She is for all people in all places, for all cultures. The water is for this world a benevolent good, just as Jesus is for this world a benevolent good. We go to the rivers because they are sacred places that hold deep time. I go there to remember who I am and the created world I belong to so that dragonflies can dance for me. River rocks can remind me that my jagged edges will be smoothed over in time. I go for the hawks and the sunlight on the water's face, for the sound of the current that is both dangerous and beautiful. The water is the place that sometimes brings us to the church and sometimes gets us away from it. Revival is always on her lips. The water speaks. And so I come back around to that moment for me at Sweetwater Creek, to that moment when God said, "You are Potawatomi, and soon the church will know." I come back to that moment. I can hear and I can smell that water, and she tells a long, deep, soulful story of mankind and the mysteries of God in a benevolently created world. The water tells me my story, calls me back to myself again, revival. She gathers us here to ask hard questions, to make room for shalom. The water tells the story of this faith that we profess to follow, and this faith that we growl and wail against when we cannot take it anymore. The water is there to cleanse. Jesus is there to call us through the wilderness and into the future of the church. May we go, may we go, may we go. And may we together proclaim this, that we are the weapons beaten into plowshares, that we are the working journey towards shalom, that we are kingdom come, that we are called to revival. Amen.